Flashy girl from Flushing, the nanny named Fran.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
Miss Fine.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Oh, Mr. Sheffield. It's a podcast about a TV show that we're going to rewatch every week. The show is from the 90s. It's called The Nanny, and it starred Fran Drescher. And I am Sean DiPasquale here with my co-host,
Tori Sheffield.
To rewatch every singular episode. This week, we watched season 5, episode 9, Educating Fran. And interestingly enough, before we dive in, I just want to take a quick moment to say a couple of weeks ago, we very, unfortunately, Chicken Littled it, said the sky was falling and that all episodes were going to be removed from HBO Max. But I don't know about you, Toria. I've been watching these on HBO Max.
Yep, it was apparently a rumor. We had several listeners, and we even had, the super gracious Peter Mark Jacobson reach out to us directly and was like, don't worry, guys, it's a rumor. It's still there. But, there was literally articles about this online. So someone was trying to sabotage us.
Yeah, we were bamboozled.
Yes, we like to make it personally about us. It was.
Yeah, this was all about us. This was just to sabotage us.
Well,
it was probably one of the other nanny podcasts.
Yeah, starting there. I mean, we were very stressed. We looked for alternate solutions. We had a friend help us out. Work went into figuring out workarounds that were
so
not
that we
needed.
Can continue doing the podcast. Yeah,
but hey, I'm still glad it's where it is, and let's hope it stays there because I think the more and more people that are like, maybe I'll try to watch that. The more new fans it gets, and
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. All right. So on to the episode. So like I said, season 5, episode 9, Educating Fran, written by Suzanne Gangursky.
Ooh, rolls off your tongue.
Yeah, Suzanne Gangursky. And directed, of course, by Dorothy Lyman. Toria, how would you sum up this episode if you had to give it a log line?
Fran begins dating Maggie's astrology-obsessed college professor, which of course makes Mr. Sheffield jealous.
Yes, he's Jewish though, so that's good.
Yes, the professor. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and so similar to last week, this is some well-worn territory, though there were some funny lines, some funny things happened. It led me down another fun rabbit hole, which we'll get into. So not mad about it, but again, not like a revelatory episode this season. But Sean and I were actually just saying how so many of these episodes this season have been in our top home runs. So, there's only a matter of time when, you can't sustain that forever in a season. So, we're not surprised. But so this episode begins with Maggie coming into the kitchen where Fran is hanging out, and Mr. Sheffield's there and a few other people, and Sylvia's there as well, I think. Not Sylvia, sorry, Yada. And Maggie is comes in raving about her philosophy professor, quote, Steve. And Mr. Sheffield is instantly alarmed by this. He's like, you call your professor by his first name? You call him Steve? And she's like, yeah, but only over cappuccinos. And he's like, you have cappuccinos with your college professor? And
Which,
she walks
I feel
out.
That's not even that unusual, right? Don't most college professors go by first names, or is that weird?
If my 18-year-old told me that she was calling her college professor by his first name over cappuccinos, I'd be
be upset.
I'd be like, that dude's skeezy.
He's grooming you.
Yeah, I'd just be like, I hate that guy right away.
Okay. All right, fair. That's fair.
But then if she, but if more information was revealed, if she was like, oh yes, we have cappuccinos with him and his husband, I'd be like, oh, okay, never mind. This is cool. But
if she did it in a real how to cook dinner and then how to cook humans for dinner, she reveals it little bits at a time.
Well, yeah, it would just be some of it would be context, but overall, I would be suspicious. And then Mr. Sheffield's alarmed, and after Maggie leaves the room, he tasks Fran with going to the college, which remember is not just any college; it's Columbia University, to feel this guy out and figure out is he skeezing on my daughter, which is just such an absurd, crazy thing for a nanny to do for an 18-year-old, But hey, maybe it should be done more often. And yet to go, she's like, I'll come with you. I need to pick up some education. I can only keep Sammy happy in the bedroom for so long. Sooner or later, he's going to want to talk. I just love this idea to go pick up some education so you have something to talk to your fiance about.
Yeah. Also the idea that this like 90-year-old woman's entire relationship is based around sex. They haven't spoken. They don't talk. It's not like about connection. Like they're just like doing it like rabbits. It's so funny. I mean,
but hey, you know all those statistics about like STI transmission in like retirement communities?
Yeah.
Man, hey.
And that all went up with the invention of boner pills and stuff, you know?
Oh, the medical term, the boner pills.
That's the medical term.
Well, just imagine a very serious doctor prescribing you boner.
Well, you get it's like when you get the prescription pad and it just says like boner pills, 10 milligrams.
So then, then we go to the university and Fran and Yetta walk into a classroom where they meet Steve, played by the actor Harry Hamlin, who's very recognizable.
Yes.
He's been in many things over the years. Do you think is he more famous than a that guy or is he a that guy?
This is a tough one for me because I know him from so many things that he's not a that guy. Like I know Harry Hamlin. He was on Veronica Mars. He's been in like so many things. He's Harry Hamlin.
I would say
I don't know.
This role was a little like it differentiated from a lot of his usual roles. Like he doesn't usually play this type of guy, I would say.
No.
He usually plays someone a little more eccentric. Not that this guy wasn't eccentric, but this guy's kind of a ladies' man. But so
he might be best known because he was married to Lisa Rinna, the housewives lady. That might actually be what he's best known as now.
Ooh, that's crazy. That's so crazy. Yeah. But so, Fran kind of marches in and she's like, I'm here to figure out what exactly is going on between you and Maggie Sheffield. Like, I know that you guys go for cappuccinos. And he explains, he's like, oh, no, I give all my students a lot of individual attention. But like, yes, sometimes they misinterpret it. And he like pulls out this batch of like love notes from like both girls and guys. Mm-hmm. And then he like looks at her and he's like, wait a second. Oh, my God. My horoscope said I was going to meet a beautiful brunette woman with an exotic accent today. And he gets super excited and he's like, I'm super into astrology. And he's basically like, will you go out with me? Like, how about Thursday? How about Friday? And she kind of, even though she definitely thinks he's attractive, she's sort of like resisting and like jumping around it because she's in this weird place with Mr. Sheffield where it's like, do I say yes when someone asks me out or don't I? Like we said we love each other, but we're not really doing anything about it. So and then he mentions that he's Jewish and she literally like almost collapses because that pains her so much that she doesn't know if she can say yes. And in the next scene, she comes home and she tells Mr. Sheffield that Steve's not interested in Maggie, but he's interested in her. And he's like, oh, what? Like as usual. And she's like, Mr. Sheffield, like seriously, give me one good reason why I shouldn't say yes to a date with this guy. And he's like, well, because, and he's clearly about to say like, because, I love you and we should be together. But then Maggie enters and he literally uses the first excuse he can to like jump ship and not just talk about his feelings. And he's like, because it could hurt Margaret. And then Fran's like, oh, come on. Like Maggie could care less if I date Steve, her professor. But then Maggie's like, date Steve? How could you do this to me? I hate you. She runs upstairs. And then Fran chases after her, but not before deflecting Mr. Sheffield by going, this, and on the heels of Brighton crashing the Mercedes. And Mr. Sheffield's like, what? And he like runs out, but then he turns around. He's like, it's fine. We don't have a Mercedes. And then like runs upstairs after her. But she slams Maggie's door behind her and locks it. And she's like, Maggie, like, don't worry. I would never do anything to hurt you. Like, I will not date your Professor Steve, okay?
I thought this scene was really, like, she really sold this bit really, really well, Fran, right?
Yes. Yeah, because at first Maggie's like, really? Like, "Oh, thank you so much, Fran. Like that means a lot." But then as soon as Fran hears that, she drops to her knees, crying and begging, going, "Please, please let me date him. You're so young and blonde and rich. You can have a zillion goyish guys. How many handsome Jewish men are there even left for me at this age?" And it's just
she literally gets on her hands and knees. It's so funny. Like because she goes from like, "I'm really sorry," and then she just goes, "Oh, please," and she like crawls over to her and like puts her head in her lap.
Yes, and just the idea, like just lays all of her vulnerabilities and insecurities so bare, like
on this like teenage girl.
Yeah, it's like, "You're so blonde and young and rich. Like, I don't have anyone. Let me say yes to this man." And so Maggie takes pity on her and is like, I guess you make some good points, Fran. Like, you can go on a date with Steve." And she's like, "Thank you for your mercy." And so she, Fran goes to Steve's apartment for a date later that week. And she kind of like pumps herself up. She's like, "Fran, you need to forget about Maxwell Sheffield tonight. You're here to have a good time." And the second he opens the door for her, we see that he has a black lab named Maxwell and it has a gray streak through its fur. And she's just like, "This is freaky." And, during the date, it's very clear that Steve is, again, super into astrology. He's like, "Fran, like I did your chart, based on the birthday you gave." Then he also, she had also said she was born in 1970, which comes into play later. It's like definitely a lie. But he's like, "I did our charts. Like we align very well." And, so things seem to be going well between her and Steve. And we kind of cut away back to the mansion. And it's late at night. Mr. Sheffield can't sleep. So he like wanders into the kitchen and then he can't find what he wants. So he, on the intercom, wakes up Niles to ask where the microwavable popcorn is.
I thought this was really funny.
Yeah. And then he like can't figure out how to do it. So he goes back to the intercom to try to like ask him. But like then Niles just appears behind him and it's just like, "Give me that." And then he microwaves it for him because Mr. Sheffield's like such a helpless baby. And Niles is like, Mr. Sheffield, like you're up late. Something troubling you?" And at first Mr. Sheffield's like, no. And then he's like, "Okay, fine. I admit it. I'm jealous." He's like, "But I can say it to you because I'm not in love with you." Niles, like clearly like kind of offended, goes, "Well, nobody looks good at 2 a.m, sir." Which is such a weird thing. Like Niles like being like, "You're not in love with me?" Like, it was just so silly.
It was a very silly bit.
Yeah,
as everything is with Niles.
yes, but establishes that like the adults in this house constantly wake him up in the middle of the night so they can make him snacks, and also that it secretly hurts him to hear that even a man he is not in love with, and even though he's straight, he is a little offended that he's not being told that he's the like eye of someone, that he's like the apple of someone's eye. And then we also have this very funny little subplot in this throughout the episode where Niles and Cece have gotten hooked on a Spanish telenovela, so much so that they now curse under their breath at Mr. Sheffield in Spanish when he tells them to stop watching. So silly. And then we're literally like almost wrapping this episode up already, because it's so crazy to say that. But so the doorbell rings the next day, and it's Steve there to see Fran. And it's very funny because Mr. Sheffield like can't help but get in his digs at Steve. And he's like, "Steve, I hear you teach philosophy, the study of objective thought. And I also hear you're into astrology, the pastime of tutti fruttis." And then he walks away. Just like so rude, so outright rude. And then Cece comes in and she goes, because Brighton had answered the door and he's like, "You're Steve?" And he's like, "Sorry, Dad." And like keeps walking, basically being like, "Oh yeah, like he's way hotter than you are." But so because of that, then Cece comes in and she just goes, "Ooh, the boy's right. He is smoking." I just love everyone refers to Brighton as the boy. Like,
the boy. Yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah. But it's then revealed that Steve says he needs to break up with Fran because he spoke to his psychic, and she says that he needs to be with an older woman, a woman, quote, in her mid-30s who's ready for family and kids and maybe a house in Great Neck. And Fran
is great. This was a great way to pay this off. Yeah.
Yep, because Fran is too proud to admit that she lied about her age, so she just accepts the breakup.
It's so funny. She's like, okay, yeah, no, yeah, you should be with someone who, like, she would rather be single than admit her actual age. It's very funny. Yeah, it's very funny.
And so then later that week, Steve shows up to the mansion again, and Brianne's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, my psychic was right. Like, I met a woman like closer to my age and it's going great. And it turns out it's Cece. And then so they walk off together. And then Mr. Sheffield comes in. He's like, did I just hear Steve? And oh, you know what? Wait, I totally blew past the scene. Where after she lets Steve break up with her and doesn't fight for it, that night she then wakes Niles up in the kitchen in the middle of the night through the intercom, asking for the Entenmann's cake that she had asked him to hide. And, you know, of course, he then shows up and like prepares it for her because everyone's like can't do stuff for themselves. And as they're sitting there together, she's like, you know, Niles, like, why am I dating these nut jobs anyway? Mr. Sheffield and I belong together. And Niles is like, well, why don't you just tell him that? And then, you know, much as he did to Mr. Sheffield earlier in the episode, like, why don't you just talk to her? And he's like, she's like, and wake him up at 2 a.m. How inconsiderate. And Niles is just like, I hate these people. But she also says something sweet where like, she acknowledges that like, yes, she lies about her age to Mr. Sheffield, but he knows it and like indulges it. Mm-hmm. And like, that's one of the reasons that they work so well, which I thought was like very like honest and kind of sweet.
It was,
you know,
I agree.
Yeah. It's like, you know, oh, you know, like when someone really loves you, like they kind of like will indulge your sillier foibles, you know, and almost think that you're cute for it, you know?
Yeah.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
And so that's when later that week, Steve shows up to take Cece out and Mr. Sheffield comes in and he's like, did I just hear Steve? And then Fran's like, yes, but I sent him away. And then he's just like, Niles told me everything. And she goes, I'm such a loser. And then he's like, oh, Miss Fine, don't cry. He's like, come on, I'll buy you a drink. And he goes, and bring your card in case they ID you. Mm-hmm. And he says it like,
very sweet.
So yeah. Like it's very clear that like he knows this woman won't get ID'd, but he knows that it makes her feel so good to like hear him say that.
Yes.
And then Niles just sees the two of them together and he just screams, I love you. Like as if to be like, just say it to each other. And then they just go, we love you too, Niles. And then they walk out. So oblivious. And that was the whole episode.
Yeah, that was it. This was a pretty good look. It was okay. I think much like last week's episode, this felt, you know, it wasn't groundbreaking in any way, but it was entertaining. It had some good beats. Yeah, I liked it. You feel the same, right?
You said it like it was really important for you that I feel the same.
You agree with me, same, right? Don't you?
No, I think that was a great summation. And I actually had some lines that I wrote down that I thought were very funny. So
good. Well, we'll get into that when we do segments. And now segments.
So, segments.
Yeah, no, I think we should move on to segments.
We can move on to our segments.
And now, segments.
Segments. With Sean and Toria.
Okay.
It's growing on me.
Right? Okay, first up, we've got favorite lines and moments. Well, let's see. What did you have?
I really liked when Fran is not outright saying no or yes to Steve when she's in his classroom because she like doesn't really know like the deal with her and Mr. Sheffield. She's like, I gotta go. I'm late for my doormats without partners meeting, which I was like, oh, that does sum it up. Like you're here to do his Mr. Sheffield's bidding, but he still won't commit to you.
Yep.
I also loved Niles sweeping all the rooms in the house that have TVs in them, like very often. he's like, sir, I forgot. I have to go sweep Brighton's bedroom. And then Niles just go, and then Mr. Sheffield's like, oh, you mean Brighton's room with the broken TV? And he goes, I meant the living room. And then he runs out.
I really liked Fran trying to get the dog named Max off the couch, and then she just goes, Max, will you marry me? And he runs away.
Yes. And she's like, works every time.
Yeah, I thought that was really, really good. And then I also liked when she's reading Yetta her horoscope, and she goes, tomorrow you will awaken. And before she can finish, Yetta just goes, woohoo!
Yes, I think that's my favorite line in the whole episode.
Oh, it was such a funny delivery.
I know.
That's all she needed to hear. She didn't even want to hear the rest of the horoscope. Just, you're going to wake up. Yay.
And like, yeah. And then Fran's even like, yeah, I didn't even say anything. I didn't even finish. And then Vienna's like, you said tomorrow, awaken. I'm cool.
It's so good.
I really liked when Mr. Sheffield is trying to get into Gracie's room once Fran has run in and locked the door. And he's like, I know you're in there. And she goes, well, move over, Columbo. I want to start saying that when people say something obvious.
Yes, me too. That's a really good one.
And I also liked when she was she is kind of, Niles is like, why don't you just say you love Mr. Sheffield? And she goes, well, why don't you just take a dip in the Dead Sea with a hemorrhoid? Which would be very painful.
Very painful, yes.
But probably very therapeutic. I feel like it'd be good for you in the long run.
Gross.
And then any other lines or moments?
No, I think we covered all of the best ones. Yep.
I didn't hear any trivia. I mean, sorry, I didn't hear any Yiddish. I meant.
Oh, I was going to say there's a little bit of trivia.
I meant Yiddish.
I also did not hear any Yiddish. You're right. Now that I think about it, but we got 2 last week, so I guess that counts.
Yeah, the average is 2 for 2 still, if we're going just by average it. Or sorry, 1 for 1.
1 for 1, yeah.
So for Nanny trivia, I thought that since this was such an astrology-heavy episode, I would dig a little bit into Fran Drescher's actual birthday. So in real life, she's born... So in the episode, I should say, I think she said her birthday was in November. But in real life, it's September 30th, 1957. And this makes her a Libra. Well, I think I am on the same page with Sean on this, but, I'm not an astrology person, but I think it's fun, sometimes like this. And so it says, the Libras are obsessed with symmetry and strive to create equilibrium in all areas of life. These air signs are the aesthetics of the zodiac, ruled by Venus, the planet that governs love, beauty, and money. Libras adore high art, intellectualism, and connoisseurship. And I was like, ooh, like I can see Fran Drescher, being the aesthetic sign of the zodiac. Like that works so well for like Fran Fine as well. And then it says Libras want to avoid conflict at any cost, which means they put themselves last most of the time. Their self-sacrificing nature can be great for their loved ones, but often leave Libras feeling burnt out and underappreciated. That toxic positivity can take a major toll on their self-confidence.
Ooh, okay.
I know. I would love to. I wish we had her on the show and could dig into it. Actually, if we ever do get her on, I think I will dig into it with her. And then
but we don't even believe in astrology.
I know, but it's so fun.
She's gonna walk away being like, "Man, they spent a lot of time asking about it. I guess they love astrology," and we're like, "No, we actually hate it and think it's fake." Also, we didn't. I don't know if we mentioned this, but the episode title, "Educating Fran," that's a riff on the movie "Educating Rita," which was stars Michael Caine.
What is that about?
It's basically, it kind of mirrors what this episode is, but it's about this working class lady who ends up signing herself up to go back to like university to study literature. So yeah, I've never seen the movie, but but it was
I'm
based on the
reading about it right
play.
now. I'm
Yeah.
reading about it right now. It's a comedy about a teacher and a very memorable student.
Hubba hubba.
That sounds like pornographic content to me.
It does.
I will not be watching.
All right, and then Fran or the CC or the other character, who were you?
I felt like the Fran because I would definitely self-sabotage to keep a lie intact.
Oh, interesting. That's interesting. And I felt like Niles and Cece because I also used to watch a lot of daytime soap operas. I liked them. My mom got me hooked when I was little, and then for a while I just like kept going with them. You know, like I liked my little stories, and then I fell out of it. But yeah, I never did Spanish soap operas though because I can't speak Spanish. So,
apparently, they're like of all the culture soap operas, those are like the juiciest.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Is the telenovelas are apparently like even more over the top than the stuff they do here. So sounds fun.
I used to live close to Koreatown, so I would actually get a lot of K-Town TV, and sometimes I would tune into their soap operas, and I just remember thinking, there's a lot of ghosts in these plots. Like, wasn't expecting it, like not mad about it, but still interesting.
That's funny. Yeah, there's a lot of ghosts. All right, so listen, if you're haunted by ghosts, or if you want to tell us about how you felt about this episode, or just tell us that we're pretty great people, you should reach out to us at Oh Mr. Chef Pod on Instagram and Twitter. Or you can send us an email at ohmrsheffieldpodcast@gmail.com, as some of you guys have been doing. And as I've been doing, every time we get them in, I'm going to read them. So this week, I would like to read you an email from Rachel, who wrote in to say, "Hi, Sean and Toria. I just listened to the most recent pod, and I'm starting to feel real bad about you guys not getting any emails. So here it is. Thanks so much for the podcast. Being a Jewish girl from New York growing up in the 90s, the Nanny reminds me of my childhood and some of my relatives. So rediscovering it during the pandemic and rewatching it now again has been super fun. I've had so many comments and questions, but I never thought to reach out. Too many to recall here, but something is surprising that I haven't seen brought up yet. And then she mentions that the Nanny is leaving HBO at the end of the month and asks, do we have any thoughts on that? And the thoughts at the time were, dear God, what are we going to do? We panicked. And now it turns out that it's not leaving HBO Max. So she ends her email saying, oy vey, to which I say, oy vey, Rachel, oy vey back to you. Thank you for the email.
Hi, Rachel. Thank you so much. Makes us so happy that you emailed.
Yes. And that's just to clarify, that was not Rachel, my sister Rachel. It was a Rachel I've never met before. So
and it wasn't Rachel Green also from New York from the show Friends.
It was Rachel Green from Friends. You got me. All right, that's it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll meet up with you guys next week for another episode. Have a great week. We so appreciate you all. So I guess that means goodbye.
The Flushing girl from Flushing, the nanny named Fran.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
Miss Fine.